The felony assault trial for hip-hop star A$AP Rocky is what's trending in true crime, but it's his superstar partner, Rihanna, who's grabbing the headlines. The Grammy Award winner made her first appearance in that Los Angeles courtroom with a big showing of support on Wednesday, but she sat out of the view of the cameras. She was seated in between A$AP Rocky's mom and his sister in the gallery. Security brought her secretly into the courtroom on a path to avoid the crowds, according to multiple reports. And we know her presence there has long been something that's been talked about. There's been a lot of speculation, and it comes at a really critical time in the midst of accuser Terrell Efron, aka A$AP Relly, giving testimony. So this morning we're talking about why was Rihanna out of the view of the cameras and how her power move of support, which the jury saw, could affect their decision. Let's bring in our power panel now. Still with me, attorney John Phillips. Want to welcome in entertainment reporter and the host of Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered on YouTube, Kinsey Schofield, and private investigator Manuel Gomez. Good morning to you all. Okay, Kinsey, I want to start with you. Your thoughts on Rihanna, please.
Well, you know, I think she accomplished what she wanted to accomplish without potentially hurting her own mainstream brand. I think there's no debate that Rihanna is the bigger star in this relationship. So she showed up to support her significant other. You know, she was a key factor in jury selection, with potential jurors grilled on whether they were fans of hers. And it doesn't matter if you're a fan of hers or not. You were watching the Super Bowl during that halftime show. You know who she is. But I think that she was there to support her significant other. Apparently, she was noticed by the jurors, according to people within the courtroom. But at the same time, cameras were not glued to her for hours at a time, potentially negatively affecting her brand as an entrepreneur and as an artist.
Right. Well said, Kinsey. I want to talk about the security component to this, because we're not just talking about any star. I mean, she is a worldwide superstar, a billionaire, as you noted, Kinsey, you know, from business and from music. She won 9 Grammys. She's a recognizable face. And is there a threat to her potentially is a fair question, right, that everyone has to think about. So when we think about whether she ducked the cameras for what reason, you have to think about safety, right? Manuel, this is where I want to go to you, of course. What do you think about safety concerns with a star as big as Rihanna? Did they do this the way they should have done it, getting her in and out with nobody seeing her?
I do believe that the safety precautions were taken to the point where it was needed. But again, like my colleague said, I think her presence there is definitely does influence the jury on this case. And I think the safety precautions, because of her star status, has been taken to the max on this case.
Right. I think it has to. You know, the people who could want to stalk her, get too close, never know. You just never know. So I can't say, I don't blame her one bit for, you know, going in whatever private way she went in. But really what counts for her, and the whole reason behind it, John Phillips, you know, the effect on the jury. Your thoughts on this from the actually, I want to ask you about both perspectives, if I can, John. Let's start with the defense perspective and then the prosecution's perspective, please.
Even before I get to that, let me add a Rihanna story. So back when I did more entertainment law, I was at an Orlando Magic game, kind of in the back where players' families are. And Rihanna was there. She was dating a player at the time. And we knew Rihanna was there, but I was talking to one of her friends, and I took a photo with one of her friends, kind of making a big deal about her, and Rihanna actually photobombed the photo and came up and introduced herself and was super nice. And that kind of gives you the insight of celebrities. Look, if I had asked Rihanna to take a photo, I'd have been awkward and she'd have probably shot me down. But they get to decide, you know, to some extent when you get to use them, right? And I think the court situation is that too. She's going to support A$AP Rocky, you know, but she shouldn't have to deal with crowds, you know, all around her at all times, and people wanting to take selfies and use this serious moment for their own, you know, secondary gain. And you know, from a defense, you want her there. You want it. You kind of want that little bit of prejudice she might give, the sympathy she might give and bring. And from the prosecutor, you got to deal with it. It's part of your case. You want to try to not make her a highlight as much as possible.
Right. John, thank you for that story. Please post that picture today if you still haven't posted. That's an awesome story. And she seems so cool. Just hearing that, it didn't surprise me, because that's kind of the vibe I think a lot of people get from her, that she's really cool, and you could see her having fun with the photobomb. Let's talk about somebody who's in the hot seat today, the alleged victim, Terrell Efron, a.k.a. A$AP Rocky. He's going to be crossed by Joe Tacopina today. Wednesday, he finished his direct examination, talked about how he collected the spent cartridge casings after he says Rocky shot at him.
All I know, I went back and found the bullets. I don't know who that is or what time, or I know I came back within an hour. I'm confused on what this is right here.
As you sit here right now, do you have any recollection of how long it took you to find these fired cartridge cases after you went back to the scene?
Probably took me no longer than 2-3 minutes.
All right, so how should the defense go after this guy on cross? We're going to talk about it. Manuel Gomez, I want to start with you here, please, because so many people are wondering, did the shooting actually happen? The defense is saying he had a prop gun, that it was blanks that were discharged, and this guy made it up. What do you think?
Well, after analyzing the facts of this case and looking at the injuries, it is clear to me that Mr. Tyrell is lying. His injuries are indicative to someone being in close contact with a starter gun. And the reason why I say that is because on a starter gun, it produces the same muzzle flash and force as a regular gun without firing the projectile. Except if it's close range, it can hurt you. His hand was hurt. His hand was not hurt by a bullet. Now, if you look at those injuries to his fingers, they are not indicative of a bullet grazing. They're more indicative of a starter muzzle flash. Okay, that's a fact. And, I do believe that, A$AP Rocky should be found guilty of assault because he discarded this starter gun. And the reason why, and it is my professional opinion, is because the suppressor of the starter gun was removed so that it would give more of an illusion of being a real gun. But when he pointed at it, Terrell, and grabbed him, then fired it, that gun, starter gun, injured his fingers. You look, that's not a bullet grazing. Trust me, I've seen many of them, and that's not it. That's a muzzle flash burn right there. And, perfect example of a starter gun being used and killing somebody and injure someone is the Brandon Lee, the Bruce Lee case in 1993. And that's because the muzzle flash suppressor was taken off, as it was in this case. That is why he most likely got rid of the gun, because he altered it. And I believe Terrell's lying. He was not shot with a gun. He was shot with a starter pistol.
Manuel Gomez, you never disappoint. We love your theories on this show. Thank you for that. Kinsey, let me go to you next, please. The story A$AP Rocky's telling. How do you think this is going to be attacked today?
Well, I can tell you online reaction is that fans of Rocky feel like there's betrayal happening. Betrayal is a word that I saw used quite often on social media in his friendship circles, and the possibility of jealousy towards Rocky from friends riding his coattails. I think if they could paint some sort of motive there as to why he would lie about something, and maybe it is just jealousy and resentment, potentially that might convince some people. But I'm with you. This story does not seem as solid as I imagined it would when you would bring somebody to this caliber to court this way and display it on TV the way it is.
Right. Great points here. This case, this is anybody's case. I see why this went to trial. If this was a slam dunk, we all wouldn't be here talking about it. We've got to leave it there for now because we're out of time. But of course, we're going to follow this as it picks up this afternoon. A$AP Rocky going to be in the hot seat. A big thanks to you all. Attorney John Phillips, private investigator Manuel Gomez, and entertainment reporter Kinsey Schofield. You all are the best. Thank you so much. We're going to hit a break.